Drafting legislation in Scotland. This is a demonstration on what the interface for a new drafting and amending tool could look like. When the user logs in, they arrive at the dashboard. This screen presents a grid view of projects that the user is interested in, although they have the opportunity to change the view into a list view of projects if they prefer. There are various sort options available in this view which need further thought. Each card on this grid presents a summarised view of the different projects they have access to with click links to perform various actions against those projects. If they would like to add an additional project to their dashboard, they can click on Add Existing Project, which allows them to search for and select a particular project by title. In this screencast, I'm going to show you how to create a new project, in this case a Scottish Bill. The user will click on Create a Project. When creating a new project, the user will need to specify what type of legislative text they are wishing to draft. In this demo, I'm going to select Scottish Primary Legislation, whereupon the subtype drop-down dynamically updates with a list of options for Scottish Primary Legislation. I'm going to create a government bill. The only other field to populate at this stage is the short title for this bill. In the wireframes we have auto-populated this, but in the real system the user would need to provide this short title here. The user can either cancel, which will return them to the dashboard without saving any details, save, which will again return them to the dashboard with the new project visible on their grid or list view. They would use this option if they were not ready to start drafting immediately, or Create Project and Start Drafting, which will take them straight into drafting the newly created project. When a user starts drafting a new project, the default starting point is the structure view. In the top header is the short title of the bill and the stage it is currently at. In this case, the user is drafting a new piece of legislation, and the stage is therefore pre-introduction. A basic structure will already exist, depending on what type of legislation was selected. Here we have a long title, but it is very easy to add other structural elements to this view using the buttons across the top. On the right-hand menu are additional bits of information and actions relating to the bill. They will be explored a little later. In this simulation, the user has selected to add a new part. This has created a new part, followed by a section, then another part, followed by another section. The user can very easily put their cursor in the structural elements and type in headings. Here, the user has supplied headings for the parts and the sections under them. In this simulation, the user has decided to add a new cross-heading and has already populated the title of this cross-heading. In this way, the user is able to build up a basic outline of the bill before they delve into any particular section or part to begin with the drafting of the provisions, if this is the way they would like to work. In addition to building up the basic outline of the bill using the structure view, the user is also able to move provisions around using the drag and drop marks on the end of each structural element. In this example, they are moving section 4 to section 6. In doing this, the section numbers will auto-update as well as any cross-references within the provisions. More on this later. Against each structural element is a list of actions the user can perform. The options are View, which opens a read-only view of the structural element in the editor window, which we will see shortly. Check out and edit, which will open an editable view of the structural element in the editor window. Once a provision has been checked out, it will be clearly marked as such, so that other drafters working on the same bill cannot make changes to the same provision. Version history, which will allow you to view all previously saved versions of the provisions you are currently viewing, from when it was first created. Create alternative, which will create a duplicate version of the selected provision, allowing you to make any necessary changes to it, for example, if you needed to draft 2 versions of a section for consideration. Both these versions would be displayed in the structure view that we see here. However, only one version can be selected to appear in the main trunk of the bill text. Users will be able to select which version they want to use. Some structural elements will allow you to perform more actions. These options include Convert to, which will allow the user to change a section into a schedule and vice versa. This scenario is incorrect in that you wouldn't be able to convert a section into a part or a chapter. And Delete. This will allow the user to delete a provision, although it can be reopened if it was required again later on. When the user is ready to start adding text to a provision, they would select the provision and select Checkout Edit. The system will then present the editor window, allowing the user to begin drafting the text. In this scenario, the user has already entered in a couple of paragraphs to this section. Here is an example of how users can add cross-references to other provisions. They would select the relevant provision and then select the appropriate paragraph level with which they want to cross-reference. Everyone prefers to draft in different ways. This system aims to provide flexibility in the way the windows are displayed. In this view, the structure menu on the left has been minimized by clicking on this arrow, or alternatively, by selecting a structure shortcut option in the top right. The other options allow you to minimize the top menu, left menu, right menu, or all menus depending on your preference. Here we have a better view of the right-hand menu. The first section in this menu allows users to manage metadata about the provision they are drafting. It is blank whilst we decide what information is important here. The next section allows you to search legislation.gov.uk. You can do this either to look up information in existing enacted legislation, or they can use this in order to insert a cross-reference or insert a quotation from existing enacted legislation. More on this later. The next section is Find and or Replace. This functionality will allow users to find and or replace text within selected provisions or the whole bill, depending on what the user has got checked out. The next section is Properties. This area allows you to insert tables, images, mathematical equations, with the menu options to allow you to update and maintain them. The next section is Editor's Notes. This is a free text scratchpad that allows drafters to capture information about the provision they are drafting. It will default to private, which means only the user or users in their organisation can view them, but they can optionally be set to public, which will allow other users of the system to view them as well if you would like to share them. This information will never be published, however. The next section is Footnotes. This will probably only be used for statutory instruments. The user can search by title, year, and type of legislation with the results being presented in a list underneath. The user can select which piece of legislation they want to view in more detail, and the system will present a new editor window with the legislation beginning with the table of contents. Using the hyperlinks, the user can navigate to the relevant provision. In this scenario, the user is going to copy a cross-reference. Here is an example of how it could work. The user hovers their mouse over the textual element they are interested in and right-click to copy the cross-reference. They will return to the section they were drafting and paste the cross-reference in. This is the end of the demonstration on what the functionality for drafting primary legislation in Scotland could look like.